An age-old question of Genshin's story is why hasn't Celestia done anything to stop the Fatui? When you have the gods that are capable of manipulating space and time, or have existed for thousands of years, or are capable of bestowing powers onto mortals and weave the fates into their hands, it's almost impossible to predict the answer of this. With 3 of the 7 Gnosis currently in the hands of people as vile as the Harbingers, you would think that Celestia would act as soon as possible before they unlock their power. But what if they don't want to, because they don't need to? What if Snezhnaya's large rebellion against the gods is simply so inconsequential that they don't see them as a threat? The goal of the Fatui is something constantly built upon as the story fleshes out, and it's finally time to shed light on this obscure and frankly outlandish topic. What is the Fatui planning? And how does their end goal even work? This is actually the 4th video of the series, so if you're interested, you can go check out the other 3. But let's begin. In the current state of the game, the Harbingers are collecting the Gnosis for unknown reasons, as well as experimenting on assorted types of ruined machinery, abyssal energy, weapon crafting, divine power, celestial knowledge, and artificial visions. The entire agenda of the Fatui at the moment is amassing power and creating potential assets, politically, economically, and scientifically. This includes the collection of powerful individuals that abide by their cause and the amassment of an army. They also have another goal, the shadow control of the other nations. It is a plot that is much more discreet, but you can see this best in Mondstadt. The Fatui are mobilizing diplomatic relations by using their military power as an overarching threat. Snezhnaya as a country is overall powerful and virtually impossible to take down. From the 3 nations that we are currently seeing, they all lack the militaristic power to face Snezhnaya, not with Snezhnaya's current arsenal, of course. However, the true plan of the Fatui is to burn away the old world and face off against one cruel enemy, for all the members of the Fatui have been warned against the cold winter night. To rebel against the foundational principles of the world, you'd have to know it. And the problem is at the moment, we don't even know what the heavenly principles are. It's a pair of words that are constantly repeated in the story's lore without actual definition. Even now, Tevat's own laws are clearly written, but I theorize that the heavenly principles of this world that the Fatui used to rebel against are the secrets mentioned in the Prayer's artifact set. These are constants in the world of Tevat that entities like the Sustainer maintain. Why they have to be maintained is currently unknown, perhaps to keep the circle of life or to assert humanity's subservience under Celestia. The very fundamentals of the Fatui's plans are that they want to rebel against the foundational principles of the world. This was mentioned in the mocking mask by Piero, and followed by La Signora's funerary mask that we receive upon her death. From the stories of the other Harbingers, we see a theme of revolution, rewriting, and retribution. From Pantalones' disgust of the gods' greed for power, to the Tory believing that humanity has its resources to achieve greatness, to Scaramouche's disposition about being higher than fate, to Signora's clear anger for the apathy and ignorance of the gods. There is a constant theme of either injustice or surpassing in their stories. But this isn't the first time that this happened in history. A civilization that questioned the gods and believed they had untold freedom, scheming to enter the garden and challenge the sky, only for them to be horribly destroyed. The Prayer's artifact set mentioned that humanity was promised prosperity by the gods, and that bountiful harvests have always been on its way. However, despite how advanced the civilization is, it was always fated to perish. Every mighty and ancient city, and every austere place of sacrifice, must one day return to profundity in the earth. All prosperity must someday end. But this does not mean that nothing is eternal. At the end of the cycle, the earth shall be renewed. Thus, eternity is cyclical. This principle was something that was played out time and time again during the history of Tevat, and I don't doubt Snezhnaya will fall into the same fate as the many, many civilizations that preceded it. Even the Polar Star Bow's speech mirrors the Prayer's artifact set well. Know that the destruction of all precedes the birth of new order. The Shivara Jade Gemstone speaks of a dialogue of someone apologizing to the traveler and asking them to burn the old world away. But in truth, this was simply how the world always operated. Celestia would know this song and dance very well. When Celestia first came to Tevat, they destroyed this world by instigating the Ice Age and the Fire Age, as mentioned by the Prayers artifact set in the book Before Sun and Moon. The world of Teyvat was already home to many lifeforms before Celestia arrived, and when they did, a war broke out between Celestia and the previous 7 terrifying dragon lords of the old world. This is when the primordial one, Phanis, descended into this old world and made the world anew. 40 winters entombed the flames, and 40 summers churned the seas. The 7 sovereigns were vanquished, and the 7 nations submitted to the heavens. The primordial one, the great sovereign, began the creation of heaven and earth for our sake, that of its creations which it cherished the most. The second largest instigation of change was the Archon War, a moment of history where so many gods and mortals were lost, but subsequently created a new world under the rule of the 7 Archons. The point is that the Fatui's ploy to burn the old world for the sake of a new one is hardly new in the eyes of Celestia, and if anything, actually abides by the foundational principles that the world fashioned itself under. Destruction precedes creation. Whether the Fatui know that they are playing into the very principles they wish to destroy is unknown, because the last time humanity decided to rebel against God, a whole civilization was punished. But truthfully, is the threat of looming danger so important to the Fatui in the first place? There is an important quote in the beginning of the trailer that has resonated with me while writing the script. Checkmate is not where the game ends, which in a game of chess sounds absolutely absurd. Once you consume the king and trap them, that means the game should be over. But I would propose another thing. Death to the Fatui is simply a stepping stone. When you speak to Fatui NPCs, they tell you that they are willing to die for the cause. And even the Fatui Harbingers are expected to one day give their life for the sake of the Fatui. We see that life is an asset in the Fatui. Harbingers are willing to abandon those that no longer pose value. They are willing to experiment on human lives for the sake of technological advancement. And they see those outside their cause as expendable. If the goal of the Fatui is to truly burn the old world away and create a new one, the question rather becomes if the goal is to eliminate all the pieces on the board rather than just the king. Sure, some pieces will be sacrificed along the way on their end, but as long as their goal of fully capturing Celestia's pieces are fulfilled, then their plan succeeds. Reset the board to the point that the fundamentals of the game no longer resemble the past. Reject the checkmate approach. If the symbolism of their plan is a chessboard and their goal is to conquer all the pieces, it's possible that the Fatui's true goal is complete conquering of the board. Not by killing the gods, but instead by using the gods' powers for the creation of this so-called new world. A world without gods and a world without the abyss. A world where humanity would prosper and fight against the common enemy and live the remainder of all of their days in peace. Or so they say. This is a quote that has been repeated multiple times in the story of the Fatui to some extent. And this is a quote that I have yet to personally understand. It's so difficult to rationalize their goals as being for the greater good of this world when their present actions have caused unspeakable damage to the other nations. So who are they doing this for, if not for their own self-gratification? Tartaglia says that Asaritsa waged war for the sake of peace, but in reality, the Fatui Harbingers have done nothing to instigate peace whatsoever in the other nations. In Mondstadt, they were abducting children and putting them into experiment pits. They threatened Mondstadt's political power and even assaulted its Archon. They have Fatui spies constantly and have shown little to no empathy for its citizens. In Liyue, it was the resurrection of an old god, the political unrest, and the questionable deeds that the Fatui do behind the curtains that people like Yelan have to constantly stop. In Inazuma, it's the puppeteering of Scaramouche, Senora, and Piero to unleash the remnants of an old god for the sake of research, poison the people of Watatsumi through the delusions distribution, and manipulate the unrest of war. Yes, some of them were horribly hurt by the world around them and their past, but a person's history and upbringing will never justify the cruelties they have done to society. There is just so much unnecessary conflict that the Fatui are instigating throughout Teyvat that this dream of peace that they advocate for simply feels so delusional. But that's the point. Not everyone in the Fatui fight for the sake of creating a new world. Some are just here for power, knowledge, wealth. So to them, to burn the old world could easily mean genocide. The history of Teyvat has always been set in blood. The Fatui are simply a new chapter in Teyvat's long history.